past couple of weeks of my life have been in the gutter. A real low point. But the beauty of my life is I've had some super lows. As Slash from Guns N' Roses would say, some major lows. And some major lows. And some highs and some lows. So, any and everything that I come across will probably get a bit more anger and vitriol than warranted in some cases, or rightfully deserved. At this point, I'm a pissed off diamondback rattlesnake, and I'm looking to bite anything too close to me.
I almost rolled down the hill.
Shut the fuck up! Extra credits was brought to my attention simply by Ziltex. You know something sucks when Ziltex is bothered by it, because the man is the true epitome of a troll. Very little ever affects a troll.
Do you want more from your games? Do you want to know how games are designed, built, and produced? Do you want your games to leave you with something more when you walk away from the screen? We are Extra Credits, and we believe that games matter. We talk about how we can build better games, how games can be used not only as entertainment, but for education, politics, even medicine. We talk about the game community, about game schools, game companies, and the business of making games. If that sounds good to you, then join us each week for Extra Credits, because games matter.
Games matter. Good games matter. Not all games. Because not all games are made equally. Most games are made for the simple fact of ripping you off, collecting extra money from you, turning players into payers, reoccurring spenders, chasing quote-unquote whales. This statement is too broad a stroke, painting all games as some sort of worthy endeavor, when at the end of the day, the gaming industry is like any other corpulent pig, overfed, fat, and looking for a little extra. The current state of affairs in the gaming industry is this. Do we have an IP that's popular? Yes. Can we add microtransactions? Yes. Can we turn it into an online game? Hopefully. Can we focus on reoccurring spenders? Yes. If there's one thing Star Wars Battlefront from EA has taught us, is just how little they give a shit about the game and how much more they care about hype training it and trying to milk you for every dime. Maybe if the game publishers spent a little less on... Let's move into the video that actually is the culprit of all of this before I go on to my soapbox.
Why are all of these $60 games trying to sell me loot boxes?
Because, you jackass, loot boxes have proven to be extremely profitable for Overwatch. Do you know how much money Overwatch made within 10 to 11 months? $1 billion. From loot boxes alone.
$100 billion.
That's why loot boxes are their little babies. And all the other gaming publishers are seeing the endless amounts of revenue. And they just can't help themselves. They've got gold fever. They've got loot box fever. It's the Bozeman Trail. And EA, Activision, and every other butt sniffer and their mother is out here looking to strike that gold vein. You don't believe me, you can ask Jim Sterling. The dude's been bitching about this shit longer than I have.
Why are all these $60 games selling me season passes for their DLC?
Because sometimes that cut content can be used later to sell back to the consumer for a little bit of extra profit. Yum yum, profit.
Why are all of these $60 games including microtransactions? What?
We just went over this with the loot boxes. Because it's... Oh my god, dude, you can't. Like, the microtransactions themselves are ridiculous for the fact that people are spending crazy amounts of money on microtransactions. Do you see how much a key is in PUBG? $2.50 for a fucking key. But the loot box itself is 68 cents. Any way you slice it, Bluehole's getting paid. I'm watching videos of people who are more popular on YouTube and Twitch than me, shamelessly spending hundreds of dollars to open loot boxes, and people sit there and cheer about it. Because it's a money maker, fucknut. Don't sit here and try to turn what they're doing into some sort of necessity to keep themselves alive. They need these microtransactions as bad as fucking Marie Antoinette needed another specially fitted gown that cost a poor French taxpayer money.
Why are all of these $60 games trying to sell me DLC on day one?
Because they know you'll buy it. They know you'll buy it. That's why these game publishers put out special day one DLC for Amazon, Walmart, GameStop, so on and so forth. Because they know there are people that are actually completionists. And completionists will go and buy every version of this game because they have to have those skins. And you know what's sad? That those skins won't matter in a year when the next game comes out. So it's like you're paying for digital goods that are worthless. You can't resell them. You can't wear them yourself. And if everybody abandons the game for the new Destiny 2, you'll be running around the raid by yourself wearing your gold wings like a douchebag. Cause no one gives a fuck anymore. It's old hat.
But the fundamental question being asked is the same. Why are they trying to make me pay more than $60 for this game? Today, we are going to answer that question.
There's no point to the rest of this video. I just answered all your questions.
AAA games should not cost $60.
I don't care that AAA games cost 60 bucks. And when you really think about it, the AAA games cost more than $60. If you count in the game, if they have a season pass, God help you if they do multiple seasons. What else is there? Real money trading. Look at the shark cards. Do you know how much money Grand Theft Auto made? Do you know how much money they made from the shark cards? Over $1 billion. Over $1 billion. And you want to sit here and tell me that the gaming industry is hurting for money
Anymore. And I'm going to spend the rest of this video explaining why. The price for a AAA game was set at $60 right around the launch of HD consoles, the Xbox 360 and the PS3.
I remember that, and I wasn't really affected by it much. I thought it sucked, but I saw it as a necessity. The boost in visual fidelity, the change of graphics, the change of the technology itself, everything was a leap forward. Made sense.
That was around 2005, and the price hasn't shifted again since, but the value of the US dollar certainly has. The rate of inflation over the last decade has averaged out to roughly 2% per year. According to the best figures I can find, that means that the value of goods has inflated 25.34% since we started selling games for $60. And let's just round that down to a flat 25% to keep the math simple. So,
what games does this YouTube channel sell? Because if they sell any of them, I advise no one buy them.
Due to inflation alone, AAA games should be selling for $75 right now. But
thank God they're fucking not. Could you imagine if games are $75 now with what they give you? Uninspired stories, sometimes pushing social justice narratives because frankly game developers seem to be scared to death of these people. And most of them don't even really play video games, so what the fuck is your problem? Think about the microtransactions, think about the gameplay. Do you notice how many games are just getting easier and easier? Dragon Ball Z Fighter is a perfect example. I was expecting like Guilty Gear X level combinations and super moves that required you to really get your shit together. Not anymore, baby. You could just mash the Y button and still do a super move if you have a charge up. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's flashy and great for the viewer, but for somebody who's used to more complicated games, it's kind of hard to wrap my mind around not hitting other buttons to make some sort of combination. I mean, yeah, you could do high-low or something like that, but I keep fucking it up.
obviously, inflation isn't the only factor in play here. AAA games are all competing to have the best-looking game on the market, and that graphical arms race gets way more expensive with each new console generation. And sure...
Now there's an issue right there. Have you noticed the graphical fidelity between PlayStation 3 and, say, 4, or Xbox 360 and Xbox One? Isn't that super big? Maybe it's because I play on PC, I'm not noticing this huge generational leap for me personally. You know, because I built my first PC around the time the PlayStation 3 was still around. And I obviously still have it now that PlayStation 4 is a thing. And I'm not seeing this super amazing jump in most games. Yes, it's in some, but it's not like super duper mind-blowing. My second one is the underlying fact that the gaming industry is trying to make up for the issues of their games being stale, being hollow, being empty, being uninspired, where they rely mainly on the hype train. Most games are just basically hyped to be this amazing experience, and 9 times out of 10 it falls flat. Not to mention the constant downgrades of visual fidelity and gameplay mechanics, because one minute they promised it, the next minute they couldn't make the deadline, and it's gone. So the trump card they have is making everything look as good as possible. I hear the term from console gamers thrown around a lot, graphical whores. And honest to God, if you're a graphics whore, I don't know why the fuck you'd be on a console in the first place. I'm not trying to throw jabs, I'm just saying. That's like someone going, I live for speed. But you have a chance to get a Bugatti Veyron, instead you buy, I don't know, a Camaro. Do you see my point? the overabundance of reliance on visual fidelity is one of the biggest problems of the gaming industry, because visual fidelity is only one aspect of a good game. Visual fidelity can only go so far if a game lacks substance, if a game lacks a good story or good gameplay mechanics. A perfect example is Metal Gear Solid 5. The story was shit, but the gameplay was great, and the graphics were pretty good. Wasn't the overall greatest thing I ever saw, but it was pretty good. Point being, you can't just rely on graphics if everything else isn't there.
Where we have found a lot of clever efficiencies along the way to reduce costs. I mean, heck, we treat third-party game engines like middleware now, and that saves tons. But even with those savings, I would estimate that AAA games cost somewhere between 3 and 4 times as much to make as they did back in 2005. So, does that mean games should actually be costing somewhere between $225 and $300? Fortunately, no. Things aren't quite that dire. It's pretty hard to pin down exact numbers on this, but the game-playing audience is a lot bigger than it was in 2005 too.
The same direction. That something is digital distribution. They're spending far less on the actual production of the physical products that they sell us, and by significant amounts. The 30% Valve takes is definitely less than the cost of putting a box on a Walmart shelf, especially when you consider that some of these publishers don't pay that base 30% cost that an indie developer would. This is point number 1 in my contention of the idea that games are too expensive to make. The production costs have fallen in the last 7 years by quite a bit, an average of about 35%, with the notable exception of what Activision did last year, which was the King acquisition. Incidentally, all of Activision's numbers jumped with that acquisition. When making the claim that games are getting too expensive to make and thus we need microtransactions, to see a 35% average decline in the amount publishers are spending on the cost of goods sold kind of hurts the claim a wee bit, especially since the cost of goods sold is an enormous part of the overall budget. The next piece that interested me a great deal, and I have a couple of graphs for this one as well, is that for the most part, the cost of research and development has remained relatively stagnant over the past 7 years. Again, this is adjusted for inflation as well. We do see the King spike for Activision in 2016, and Electronic Arts is even trending downwards on what it spends on development every year. Marketing is actually a similar story, with relatively stagnant progression, except that the King acquisition really shows itself off here, an indication that King's marketing budget was enormous. By now, those in the audience who are interested in or interact with the exciting world of corporate finance on a day-to-day basis may have noticed that I'm just going down the balance sheet. This is all public information, and those of you in the know will be wanting to point out, Tarmac, you can't compare all of these things like this. There are too many unknowns. And you'd be right. I'm not doing a direct comparison, especially because Activision has a December fiscal year end while the other two end in March. Rather, what I'm doing is looking for trends. What we've seen so far is that year over year, on average, cost of production is going down, and despite any small increases on occasion in development and marketing, that reduced cost of production is going down at a much faster rate. Well, if you were going to claim that games are too expensive to make, seeing some of these costs dropping faster than corresponding development costs should be rising is a little bit odd.
And thus, one of the bigger issues. I dare say that around the time of PlayStation 2, 3, Dreamcast, Xbox 360, the gaming industry wasn't as popular as it was. And at that time, game devs were trying to fight to prove to the rest of the media industry that gaming was viable. Before, gaming was looked at for little kids, and if you gamed and you were over like 10, people made fun of you. I remember being 16 and having girls and, football jocks make fun of me and my friends because we still played video games. Now look at it. Now look at how things have changed. How accepted it is. How esports is a thing. Figures it happens after I leave. But point being, games like Shenmue, which pushed the barrier, very, very story driven. Yes, the voice actors were bad in the American version, but the story was so enthralling you didn't pay attention to that. The gameplay mechanics were next gen. In fact, a lot of the things they did were revolutionary. Everything you see in games now was kind of originated by Shenmue. And that's another sad thing. How much has the industry grown since that game came out over 10 years ago? Not much at all. Now that there's a larger installment base of people in the gaming industry, and now that gaming is seen as a respectable, viable form of media and income, there also comes the problem with mass acceptance, and that's mediocrity. When you really think about it, think about your favorite bands. Think about how great their first albums were, and think about how shit they are now. A perfect example would be U2. Look at U2. Look what happened from the time of Sunday Bloody Sunday and the Joshua Tree to now. That's what the gaming industry is. The gaming industry is now Bono, alright? You look back and you remember what Bono stood for in the beginning, and now you look at what Bono is now, and you're fucking tired of that guy. With this mass acceptance and appeal, there's just a lot of people who are willing to take whatever comes, and they see flashy trailers and they just get hyped. Hashtag hype. Hashtag E3. Can't wait for this. This is amazing. You know, I had to stop following Fallout 4 on Twitter because every time I turned around, they would retweet somebody talking about how Fallout 4 is their favorite Fallout game. And I thought to myself, either A, you've played no other Fallout games, or B, you have the mental span of a flea, and all the previous Fallout games were too hard or too annoying for you, and it required too much thought. You just like to bang bang, shoot 'em up, I put on my armor, I kill a death claw in the first 5 minutes of the game level of bullshit. So now that the gaming industry knows they have that going on, they can do what they want.
A lot more customers to sell to, which helps to make up for that higher production cost, and can result in even bigger profits if you manage to make a huge hit.
You don't even have to make a huge hit, for God's sakes. Look at Destiny 2. According to the analysis of Newzoo, the AAA video game industry made an estimated $116 billion in revenue in 2017. It's an adjustment from their previous assessment that they'd make $108 billion. They made $8 billion more than they anticipated. And for the year of 2018, which is this year, they are predicting that they will make $125 billion or more. Do not be misled into thinking the gaming industry is making money. If anything doesn't make money, it goes away. It leaves. Look what happened to the DeLorean. The Back to the Future car. It made no money. The DeLorean's gone. You can order one now, custom made, but I ain't dropping $55,000 on a fucking DeLorean.
Unfortunately, when you're counting on that higher number of sales to make a profit, if your game flops, well, you're going to be losing an impossibly large, possibly studio-sinking amount of money. But
when a game flops, the only place you can place the blame is on the publisher and the devs. The perfect example is Mass Effect Andromeda. We all know what happened there. The alpha looked better than the finished game because they're trying to do some procedurally generated worlds because everybody was blowing a nut over, what was it, No Man's Sky? Everybody thought No Man's Sky was going to be this revolutionary game, and I called it. I said it wasn't going to be what they thought it was. Zill called it Star Citizen for console players. Long story short, another game didn't live up to its hype, dropped dead, and EA saw how poorly that worked for Star Citizen and then pulled the ripcord on it and left the devs 2 years to fix everything else. There were multitudes of other problems that I'm not getting into. There are videos you can check for that because I ain't got the time to break down everything in this sort of sense.
since we're just focusing on what the average retail price of a game should be, let's just ignore that increased risk factor for now. Based on what we've seen firsthand working in this industry, much of which is under NDA, unfortunately, if I had to make a gut estimate, and understand this really is just a rough guess, I would say that the actual retail price of a modern AAA game without any additional ongoing revenue sources to support it should probably be as high as $85 to $90 new. Now, understandably, that number freaks the industry out.
Because they know nobody will pay. I mean, come on, dude. If what's going on in the AAA industry, all the nickel and diming, all the little sneaky plots to have in-game systems designed to prey on people who have addictive personalities or who are interested in buying a monetization gun or something like that, to sort of push them into making the purchase, doesn't that just scream to you as a company with no morals? Doesn't it just scream to you that they have no value of the consumer? That their end game is money? Has The Witcher 3 taught anyone anything? I can't find the article from PC Gamer or anywhere else because, sadly enough, I didn't think I'd look at it again. I just looked at it like months ago and lost it. But The Witcher 3 continues to make money long after its release. The last time I looked, CD Projekt Red's Witcher 3 made $250 million, and that was in March. And I was checking out an article like a month ago from PC Gamer that The Witcher 3 passed some other milestone where they made some crazy amount of money because frankly gamers like the game. The DLC was actually DLC. It wasn't cut content. The expansion passes for Blood and Wine and Hearts of Stone were genuinely fucking good. If you look at The Division, their season pass DLC was garbage. So much so that version 1.8 or 9 just recently came out and it had better content than the season pass had. That's sad. When you look at Destiny 2's first expansion pass, the Something of Osiris, and how many people played it and were so upset by it, they had to make videos saying they were done with the game and they left. They uninstalled. They were pissed off at Bungie and Activision. Most of these big game devs, maybe most likely it's the publishers pushing them to do this, but everything is so sort of, it's like by the numbers, by the book. Because do these things here, follow this fetch quest there, shoot this guy here, and bing, bang, boom, $25 season pass, take it. If games were $75, you can't honest to God sit here and think that the gaming industry wouldn't sit there, smile at you and go, okay, we won't do anything again, and then before you know it, there would be expansion passes. There would be microtransactions again. You give them an inch, they take everything, as Jim Sterling says. You have to remember the gaming industry right now is like Phil Burnell, dude. Alright? It's like DSP. If you've ever seen anything DSP has done recently, he cries about losing his house, his fans make the money so he doesn't lose his house, and now he's telling them he might have more tax troubles. It's only been a month since the last crisis was averted. He'll never stop milking until the well has run totally dry. Neither will the AAA gaming industry.
I need that money. I really do. I need that money to pay my bills. By the way, I really desperately need the money to help with my tax situation. So, hint, hint, save the house.
Who outside of Australia is gonna pay $90 for a video game? I mean, we all saw what happened to the Neo Geo, and this fear has been compounded by the success of the mobile game market, which has sort of trained consumers to think that games should be astonishingly cheap. I mean, for a tablet game, $10 is considered expensive, even if that same game would cost $30 on the DS or $40 on Steam. And for that matter, Steam...
You have to understand that the tablet games and the phone games are marketed towards the average person, alright? The average person who doesn't actually game. They don't really have much of an interest in gaming per se. They just want something to fiddle with while they're waiting for Tinder replies or while they're waiting for someone to Snapchat them. That's it. It's like a distraction because honest to God they can't be left alone with their thoughts because they fear the dark reality that is themselves. Self-reflection is a scary thing when you're a douchebag, little babies.
Sales have been training us to expect cheaper games too, and so the industry has...
Steam sales have nothing to do with it. Steam sales are brilliant simply because of this. Most of the games that come out now, you already know whether it's going to be crap or not, unless you're drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't drink any Kool-Aid. Most big AAA games, I wait till the Steam sale comes, and then maybe I'll buy it. Because when you buy the game and you play it, and it sucks, or it's not that good, you sit there and think, well, at least I only spent $12 on it. I mean, I'd be pissed if I picked this up on day one and got this sort of experience. Everything loses value anyway. It hasn't trained anyone anything. If you want a car but you can't afford it, you wait till like the old stock comes up and then you go to the dealership and start trying to haggle yourself a bigger deal. This 30K car is now like 20K, 18K. We gotta get it off the lot. Can we make a deal? Or you wait till someone else buys the car and then you go on Craigslist and get it way cheaper secondhand from a dude who kept it garage kept. That's my suggestion if you're into that sort of thing. Bring backup just in case it's a robber.
Kept that $60 price right where it is. And, I mean, maybe they're right to do so. A lot of people got pretty bent out of shape when the price got bumped up to $60 back in 2005. And there is something about the number 70 that just feels like, yikes, that's a lot of money. Industry wisdom really may be right here. Maybe raising that standard price any higher than $60 would lead to a drop in sales. But by not raising prices, we've sort of put ourselves in a tough spot. If we are going to cover our development costs, reduce the risk of catastrophic losses, and show our shareholders the return percentages they're expecting, we've got to do something to increase revenue. And we've tried to do that in a...
Why not make better games? Maybe that's a thought. Why not, instead of re-releasing a slightly different version of the same game annually, you focus on a good story narrative, character development, plot. Maybe spend less money on hype trains, less money on promotion, less money in the pockets of big YouTubers and Twitch streamers to promote the game to their audience before it releases to make sure people buy things. Maybe less pre-order bonuses that are specifically put there to incentivize people to pre-order a game, not sure if it's good or not. I don't know. Maybe offer a better product and things wouldn't be so dire. Maybe if the focus wasn't on ripping off the consumer or getting as much money as possible, people would be more interested in said games. Maybe if it wasn't forced to be a mass appealing game to a whole bunch of people, why not focus on the core audience, the fan base? Why not give people something they actually want instead of trying to make it available to everybody? Mind-numbing controls, dumbed-down mechanics, and things that seem almost insulting to anyone with some level of cognitive ability and dexterity. Oh no, why bother doing that? Let's stick to the same old formula we've always used.
Tried to do that in a lot of different ways, to varying degrees of success. First, we tried increasing revenue by selling DLC, but fans got upset if we sold that DLC at launch, and they didn't buy it if we released the DLC later.
Here's an idea. The fans got upset with DLC at launch because usually that DLC could have been in the game. What the fuck is the point of launch DLC? You can't justify it. You can't, because if it's launching with the game, it should have been in the game in the first place. And most of the time, the launch DLC, which led to a lot of trouble a few years ago when game manufacturers were launching games that had the DLC locked onto the game. Is there no shame? No, of course not. Let's defend these sort of ridiculous practices. DLC too far after launch? What game had DLC super long after launch? I can't think of any. None come to mind.
Next, we tried designing games to be perpetual experiences, games that you would play all year long, because then we could sell map packs and expansions over that game's longer lifespan. But supporting those games long-term...
So you basically wanted to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic us. For those who remember, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was a fantastic BioWare RPG. 1 and 2 were brilliant games. So EA took it under all their brilliance to basically turn it into an MMORPG. And we all saw how that went. They made a lot of money from what I understand about the game from people who actually played it, because I never bothered with it. But still, they basically took a game people wanted, and instead of giving it to them the way they wanted, EA decided to turn it into this prolonged MMORPG in hopes that they could get you to buy skins and all this other garbage and microtransactions and the special edition versions and pay for a monthly subscription. I mean, when you don't give the people what they want, what do you expect's gonna happen? They won't be too interested in what you have to offer. The only MMORPG that seems to get it right that actually has a pay system is Final Fantasy XIV. Or was it 13? I'm pretty sure it's 14 now.
Turned out to be pretty expensive too, and it didn't really work for every kind of game. Besides, players can only...
That's the fault of the game publishers. If they don't have enough foresight to know which games that these sort of mischievous tactics were applicable to, then that's fucking on them. That's like you not knowing the difference between a box that clearly says poison and paprika. Well, sucks to suck, Junior.
Actively keep up with so many perpetual games at once. So all of those perpetual games have to compete for attention, and the audience just gets locked down. It's like the MMORPG flood all over again. And so now we are trying the next thing, loot boxes. We'll come back to the specific topic of loot boxes in a couple of weeks, but this is basically where we're at. And now we as an audience have to decide what we want. Are we okay with paying more for these games at retail? $70? $80? Maybe even more? The data suggests that the answer is no, but if that's the case, well, we're gonna have to learn to live with loot boxes or microtransactions or whatever other model the industry attempts next. And by learn to...
Loot boxes are icing on the cake. Extra sprinkles. The gaming industry knows how much money can be made from it. As I stated earlier, there's been billions of dollars made between Overwatch and Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, they have made bank on their in-game online monetization systems, and others are following suit because it's big money. And all of these gaming industries want to make money. They want to increase profit and decrease costs at any cost possible. In the long run, the only thing that matters to them is the bottom line and their shareholders and investors. The gamers themselves don't matter. The developers of the game don't matter. The way EA closes down studios is a clear sign of just how little devs matter. They're also caught in this sort of fucked up grinding machine that puts meat in and shoots out whatever the fuck is left, some sort of pulp. And what's weird is that this channel that has 1.3 million subscribers is in some way trying to rationalize and defend what's been going on the past while. The reason why there's been such a huge backlash is due to the overwhelming abundance of greed that has just struck the industry. The second Overwatch did well, and I know Overwatch didn't start loot boxes, but let's be fucking frank. Overwatch is the most successful loot box system. And the rest of the gaming publishers want to follow suit for that type of level of income. And they're not going to stop until things get so bad that they're forced to stop. And they only roll out some new idea. God only knows what it could possibly be. I shudder to think.
Live with, I don't mean put up with predatory crap. I mean we're gonna have to find a way to reward developers for making good supplementary income systems that aren't overly aggressive or in any way required to play competitively. Monetization systems that leave you satisfied.
So we have to figure out how to reward the developers. The consumer has to figure out how to reward the developers for this. Because I guess, you know, the game publishers don't have to reward the developers. It's up to the consumer. I figure reward enough is you buying the game and liking it, I think. Reward enough is leaving a good review. But let's just be honest, most games today are uninspired. You know, it's funny how only certain industries have this level of pandering and love and respect in defenders. You don't see anybody on YouTube making a video about how we need to reward the fry cook at Wendy's. You know what I'm saying? You don't see shit like that. And the sad thing is the fry cook isn't out to squeeze any extra money out of you. And I think the community is doing a fantastic job of rewarding developers on second thought. Look at how things have gone for CD Projekt Red. I mean, maybe the developers need to step up and come up with something that isn't intrusive and that doesn't disgust us. Maybe a DLC that doesn't seem like cut content. I don't know. Those are some ideas.
Monetization systems that leave you satisfied and actually increase your enjoyment of the game you're spending dozens of hours on, even if you choose to. You get the hell out!
Wow. Oh, I've got nothing. I cut him off too soon. I didn't know I was supposed to reward the developers for coming up with a microtransaction system that's rewarding. I didn't even know microtransaction systems could be rewarding. I mean, the only one that could be considered rewarding is possibly one where it allows you to buy what you actually want. But when they do that, they overcharge you anyway. Look at Black Desert Online. Look at how much an outfit costs on that shit. Like the outfit you actually want costs about $30. If you look at Overwatch's new skins for the professional Overwatch teams, look how much one skin for one character costs. $5. And Overwatch says that if you buy those skins, it's supporting the teams and it helps them pay for all this broadcasting and bullshit like that. What about all the money Overwatch got from the loot boxes? Over $1 billion bucks. Nah, that money, it can't help them maintain the stupid Overwatch League. You chumps at home have to pay for it. $5 for a fucking Texas Tornado skin. Eat my asshole.
Spend very little. But make no mistake, those really are our only two options right now. Because, like I said at the beginning, AAA games just should not cost $60 anymore. See you next week.
Maybe AAA games shouldn't cost $60 anymore when they fucking deliver us an experience that's worthy of a price jump. How about that? Maybe it's because AAA gaming has not really evolved from 2005 that it's stayed where it is. You know, maybe AAA gaming is like the kid in the mailroom, Rusty. He doesn't really have much ambition, he doesn't really care much, but he knows he's got full coverage, a 401k, and he just has to walk up and down some aisles and drop some mail in some fucking people's desks. So he doesn't really have any aspirations to go any further. That's what the AAA industry is. There's always some sort of apologist, man. It doesn't matter how messed up a system gets, it doesn't matter how corrupt it becomes, there will always be someone apologizing for it. There will always be someone trying to rationalize why things are the way they are. When in all actuality, it's maybe just because the people at the top don't care and they need to be ousted. Maybe there needs to be a real change within the industry before people feel that it's worthy of some sort of price increase. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just real tired of everything that's going on and it's taking its toll on me as a person. And on that note, I should get out of here because this is kind of like an unexpected video. I was working on something else and that got pushed back. Hopefully I'll have some mod videos up. I want to do a review of the new Dragon Ball game. See how reviewing games go for me. And some product reviews, possibly. I just have so little time, and I don't get everything I want to do out. I've got a lot of emails to go through. I'm not ignoring anybody. I'm trying to be a one-man army. So bear with me. Thank you for your time. Rate, comment, subscribe if you so choose to. If not, to hell with it. I can't ask anybody to give more of a shit than me in the age of apathy. But just know, keeping a guy like me afloat leaves a voice